Hey everybody, John Felt here. This is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing for January 10th, 2026. Well, this time of year is always interesting because there's a lot to look at as far as what's going to shape the core part of winter that we're getting in right now. How much snow's on the ground, our active winter snow tracks, where the snowstorms will be, the upper air pattern and such. So I'll try to explain a little bit of that in this week's briefing. I'll also be talking about it posts throughout the week. Now, if you're a frequent listener, please tell others about Blue Water Outlook. Go to bluewateroutlook.com. They can sign up to get my posts. Let's get started. Well, first of all, where will the hot spots be this week? I think we want to focus on the southeast this weekend with severe storms and heavy rain. And this is the area that typically would get severe weather if it does occur in January. The other area we're looking at here is I think we're looking at the Great Lakes, where we're going to have some snow into the northeast as well. That's been the action track so far this winter, and it looks like the next couple weeks that will continue to be the action track. Now, last week, here's our precipitation. The rain over the southeast is what occurred yesterday, and you can see we also had some rain in the central part of the U.S., and that was also in the form of snow. This is where the snow did occur last week. Like I said, I think the two areas so far this winter has been the higher elevations of the west and then this band across the Great Lakes into the northeast. So we'll jump to this later as well. I just don't see those classic winter storms yet, the panhandle hook type winter storm. We have not had those so far, and it's a little early, but I don't see much sign of that either. So been pretty quiet from that standpoint. So when we look at snow on the ground, this is a snapshot. This was from last week, and climatologically, this is likely to melt. So our seasonal snowfall is probably sort of limited to this area right here and here. And that's probably pretty close to historical patterns where we would expect it. But most of the nation, Midwest, the plains, not much snow, if any. Now, last week we had a bit of a winter reprieve. We had some nice weather in many spots. People were hoping let's that continue for a while. We had anything in this orange here. We had 60s and 70s. We had in this darker, this is the brown 60s, this would be 70s, this would be 80s, even hitting near 90 in South Texas. So a bit of a reprieve last week. Okay, so the dew points this week are focused in the southeast U.S. Look at that, a 70-degree dew point, and that's right where the severe storms are occurring this morning. And that's also where we expect some flooding, flash flooding, and the potential for a few spots on rivers to get above their banks as well. So right in the southeast. Okay, so here's the jet stream analysis, and we're going to be transitioning into a jet stream alignment this week that's going to continue well into January. And by Thursday, you can see that we have an amplified jet stream here. It digs down to the south right here. And if you're under the area of low pressure right here, you're talking about colder than normal weather. If you're under the high pressure, you're talking about warmer than normal weather. And that looks like a pretty persistent type pattern to some degree. Sometimes it's going to push up to the north. Other times it's going to sag back down to the south. But overall, it looks like those are the major trends as we go through a good part of January. So let's look at temperature, then we'll look at precipitation. Here's temperature. And you can see by midweek, or really mid to late week, we're lined up that pattern. And then as we get into late January, the question will be is how far south will this sag? Will it sag to the south here, or will it stay up to the north? And I think week to week we will have some changes. Cold fronts will come through, it'll pull that air to the south, and then it'll retreat back to the north. But it does look like the big trends, the southwest U.S., mild weather, and the Great Lakes, upper Midwest, and northeast, cold winter weather. That's temperature. Let's talk about precipitation. Looks like a pretty quiet week this week. Higher elevations of the Pacific Northwest, some wet weather, snow at the higher elevations, rain at the lower elevations. Some periods of snow in the Great Lakes and Northeast, and here's this weekend rain in the Southeast. Other than that, a pretty quiet week. Now, as far as snow goes, this is that band I've been talking about. This is what we've had not just this week, but for several weeks. Appalachian snow, and that's what we'd expect this week. These aren't necessarily major storms. These are more very quick clipper systems moving across the area. As they move over the Great Lakes, they'll enhance the snow. Now, I wanted to bring a long-term something to your attention. This is week 2, and we have that divide here: cool air, mild air, and pretty quiet weather as well. You know, hey, look at this. The Pacific Northwest, after this upcoming precipitation, a very dry, extended dry spell into 2 weeks. So it's going to dry out in the west. But overall, I don't see any major storm systems right now. Now, something can come in there. We're looking weeks ahead. But right now, it looks pretty quiet. And the other pattern trend I wanted to talk to you about was this is weeks 3 and 4. Now we're getting well into winter, and we're still seeing this pattern here. So if you're in Milwaukee, Detroit, into the Northeast U.S., you're going to have it's going to definitely feel like winter, and maybe even a harsh winter. If you're in the Southwest U.S., L.A., Las Vegas, you're going to have a very mild winter, it looks like. So I've got some long-range outlooks coming out later this week I'll be showing you. What else do I have this week? I got a lot on my mind as far as what I want to put out. So I'm going to have to see what's relevant this week, but I definitely want to hit some long-range outlooks. That's this week's briefing. Tell others about Blue Water Outlook, bluewateroutlook.com. Take care.